we did have some volunteers inquire about a recording since they weren't able to be here tonight. So I'm assuming and hoping that we'll have a few more people join us, but for those that are here now, thank you so much for joining. We are excited to finally be pursuing this, what we're calling a field support team for Trout in the Classroom. When I started, my name is Amber Taylor. I know I've communicated with some of you, met some of you in person. So I am excited to have this volunteer group kind of being established. When I started in 2018, we had no volunteer list available to us really. So it's kind of been a very, 4 years of work, kind of gradually building that and moving towards something that's a little bit more sustainable for this program as it gets larger. So I have been the education program supervisor for, this is my 5th school year. And I have had a team on and off. Many of you know or have met Evan Griggs. I was lucky enough to be working with him the first 3 years of this program, and since have worked with a few other people in some educator roles. So Gary, if he joins us, many of you know Gary too. He is a TCTU board member, and the title of the Trout in the Classroom Field Support Coordinator for the TC2EU chapter. As this grows and establishes, our goal is to have a Gary in each of the 4-5 chapters throughout Minnesota, okay? To have that one person kind of be the go-to for the chapter for Trout in the Classroom volunteers. So I know in the communications that were sent out about this in your TC2 emails and that sort of thing, Bob was referring to it as a training. This is going to be more of just kind of informational. We are just getting this up and off the ground. So we don't really have a specific recipe to just train you on right now. Because this role may look different for all of you, depending on how you want to engage with the schools that you would potentially be assigned. So to do a training on all of this in 1 hour would be crazy because it's a lot of stuff. So this is just informational. This is not committing you to anything by attending. This is just kind of letting you know we're going to go through, some of you have helped with a fishing skills program or egg delivery or that sort of thing, but you may not know kind of what Trout in the Classroom looks like in the classroom. What does it look like through the school year? So we're going to do that. I have a PowerPoint with some videos and pictures and stuff to show you so you can get a better idea of what this program is all about. And then we'll take a look at what the field support kind of volunteer role and team might look like as we get it developed. Okay, sorry. My cat is chewing on my computer cord. All right. So Trout in the Classroom, a little history on it. Trout in the Classroom exists throughout the country in various ways, and it differs per state. So another state might raise salmon, species of salmon, or a different species of trout than we raise. The coordinating entity may differ. So some states are fully volunteer run. All of their teachers rely on volunteers for the coordination efforts that we are lucky to have a team do here in Minnesota. And then some of them are state entities, like the DNR Fish and Wildlife Services has somebody that coordinates that program for them. Release regulations are different. Minnesota is one of the only states that requires disease testing of our fish before releasing. And I'll talk a little bit about disease testing later. But Colorado had those regulations as well. And I found out in a national coordinator meeting, they just got those dropped. So I don't believe that our Minnesota Waters and Fisheries Department will ever let us do that. And I'm okay with that because making sure our fish are disease-free is important before they go into our waters. And it's a really great lesson for students as well. as a component of this program, because they get to learn that it's just not willy-nilly throwing fish into water anywhere. So I am going to share, if you don't mind, I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint, and it's hard for me to see the chat questions if you write anything in chat without actually looking. So if you have a burning question, feel free to interrupt me and just turn on your audio. Otherwise, just write it down and I'll have time at the end, okay? There's only one of these videos that that really requires the audio. I tried it in a teacher training earlier in the week and it didn't work. So let's see if I can make it happen. I think I figured out what was wrong. All right, so let me get all of this. I was looking at what that was. Okay. Okay. So obviously trout in the classroom. We have been, this program started in 2007 with a tank in Bemidji and a Bemidji elementary school. And since has grown quite a bit, and we'll take a look at those numbers on the next page. What the video I'm going to share with you now is one that Minnesota Bound did for trout in the classroom. They went to one of our classrooms here in St. Louis Park in January 2020 and did all sorts of filming and interviewing of students with the idea of being able to come to a release and film and do all of that. But we know what happened that spring. We were not able to do any releases that spring, unfortunately, with students. But it's a great look inside the classroom, some of the an activity that we do with students, and kind of a look at what the tank setup looks like. I'm going to pause it at a certain point and confirm that you can actually hear it. So we'll get it started and go from there. No. Oh, wow. This is... Oh my goodness.
We can hear it though.
You can hear it. Awesome. It's an ad you're listening to. All right. Stop the ads. All right. I'm going to just fast forward this a little bit. There we go.
Hey there, welcome to today's adventure.
Something fishy is happening in the classroom these days.
Yep, and it's all in the name of freshwater conservation.
Something fishy is going on in this classroom.
Is there any part of the dorsal fin located near the middle of the fish's back? Yeah.
So does that have that squared 90-degree angle dorsal fin like we talked about? No.
I'm Jim. I'm going to talk to you about fish, which can't be a surprise. We're glad to be with you today. We are the friends that brought you that big tank of small friends that you've got over there.
Those 350 little fingerling friends were donated by Trout Unlimited via a state grant.
So here we run the Trout in the Classroom program. This is our second year in the program, and what we're doing is we're raising rainbow trout to hopefully release in the spring. Along the way, we learn a little bit about trout habitat. We learn about requirements for sustaining trout populations. We look at water quality, water chemistry.
We're testing for high range, pH, and nitrite.
How are trout swimming in a classroom beneficial, you ask?
From this program, I really hope that my students gain an appreciation for Minnesota, our natural resources, and the outdoors. I hope they learn more about our water quality and how to better sustain our state, and that preserving habitat.
Very important lessons to learn at any age.
I've been learning all about trout that I've never learned anything about before, all the stages that they go through and what kind of conditions they need, and that it takes a lot of work to maintain their life.
So all of the fish in the room are native to Minnesota except two. Do you know which two? Yeah. Right, yep, and?
Brown trout?
Yeah, rainbows and browns, we stock.
The rivers and the lakes here have to be taken care of in a space where they have to have like cold, clean water, and like you can't like just dump stuff into the lake because that might kill the fish. I just thought they had like the baby stage and then they just grew up, and I didn't know they went through so many different cycles, and that they could like, you know, they have so many different chances at living and dying.
So we talked about fish adaptations, how they allow fish to live, how they live, and where they live.
This isn't the only classroom taking care of young trout, known as PAR.
This program spans the across the state. We have 43 teachers in the program. Our furthest north school is Northam, Minnesota, north of Bemidji, and then all the way down through Winona and Rochester. And I have 30 teachers on a wait list to join the program next year. There's so much more to learn around them than just their biology or the trout themselves. They're an indicator species of clean water, clean, cold, healthy water. So by bringing these into the classroom, then you're bringing nature into the classroom with the kids, right in their face.
All these trout, naturally, they live in moving bodies of water, right?
This is nature in and out of the classroom. When springtime comes, the student caretakers release their rainbow nursery into the Vermilion River.
We, especially at Trout Unlimited, want kids to be really aware about cold water watersheds and fisheries, things like that. We do have a good amount of trout streams in our state. Not a lot of people know that though, and they need a lot of protection to stay clean and cold and healthy fisheries. So we really want to expose those things to the students all over the state.
Call it introducing a kid to the great outdoors and the importance of conservation, one classroom at a time.
How can we help in our own watersheds and things that we can do? There are little things that kids can do immediately in their homes that they can help with those things, and just becoming environmental stewards in their adult life. Because these are the kids that are really going to do some awesome things in the future when it comes to conservation and our natural resources.
Coming up.
All right. So that was a great video they did for us, and they've played it actually a couple times. So what does Trout in the Classroom look like now? So 2007, one tank supported by that Bemidji area chapter with their funding, their volunteers, etc. And fast forward, and we now have 64 schools and 2 nature centers. We have been able to grow from state-funded state grants, donations, fundraising, that sort of thing. And some schools and teachers have even raised their own funding for the equipment. Okay. This is something that I did. This is a map I put together to class management. A few years back, and I started it because I figured it would help me with the egg delivery planning, and now I've figured out that it is useful for a lot more things, especially just kind of giving a visual of where all of these tanks can be found throughout the state. This, a side note, this PowerPoint will be shared with all of you after this meeting, so you will have the links to all of these things. So you'll be in the recording of this meeting as well. The blue schools are new schools in the program, and then the orange schools are returning. Okay. And we have I guess it splits almost evenly between elementary, middle, and high schools in the program, with a few less middle schools involved, and it's in grades 4 through 12. This is kind of that big list showing all of the different towns in Minnesota. I have learned lots of little towns throughout Minnesota and our outstate places that I never knew existed. We've had teachers contact me to get in this program. And there's 64 schools and 2 nature centers and 72 total tanks. Some of our schools have more than one tank in their schools. So the program impacts, just since it connects thousands of students with nature, both in and out of the classroom, in gathering all the numbers from the last 4 years of programming, to include our fishing skills programs we do with youth in the summer, we've reached almost 10,000 students with this program. So it can reach, it reaches a ton of them all throughout the state. Promotes environmental stewardship and a deeper understanding of the natural world. There's a lot of layers to this program. As I was saying in that Minnesota Bound clip, there's those trout are just the platform, and there's a lot of other routes and things and topics that teachers delve into using them as that base. Provides teachers with the opportunity to engage students throughout the school year in hands-on experiential learning about watershed ecology, fish biology, habitat, and a variety of other things. This program is really great because it does allow that September through May engagement with one program. Teachers can continue to build on it, students can continue to build on their learning, and there's, like I said, a variety of topics they can focus on. And it's multidisciplinary. It's not just science, there's a lot of math, there's chemistry, there's physics, and social studies that can be learned through this program. So with teachers, the program starts in August, doing a teacher training, an in-person teacher, full day in-person teacher training, which next summer I would hope to invite our field support volunteers to that training. And then because we don't get eggs until a little later in the year, in December, how we start the year is teachers are running what are called fall field days with their students. In some cases, our educators are able to lead these as well. But there is an expectation that teachers are doing some version of this in the fall to prep their, kind of get their students excited and engaged with the program. We do an aquatic macroinvertebrate study. So in some cases, as you'll see in some of these pictures, students are, using different science tools and materials. In some cases, they're able to get into waders and in the water. And what we're doing in the lessons we teach with this is not only just insect ID and using something like this dichotomous key right here, but they're also looking at the species that they find in regards to the health of the water. We can talk about different species that are more tolerant or less tolerant to healthy water and why we're finding what we find. The goal of this particular activity is to be on a moving body of water, but often, and it can be local to the school, maybe in walking distance or nearby. We have a lot more flexibility with the location of this program than we do with the spring release. And with schools that have a lot of students to get off site and busing may be a factor, we end up doing kind of their little pond near the school type studies, which you can still pull insects out, but they may not be able to get into the water, for example. Kids have a blast with this. Insects are exciting for everybody from kindergarten through 12th grade. So that's kind of what takes them in from September into October. Starting in October, teachers set up their tanks and get them running. They have to do what's called pre-cycling and get that nitrogen cycle established in their tanks to get prepared for the eggs. And this year, and I know there will be more information coming out or on in the TCTU newsletter in October and November. Just a reminder, December 7th, for those that are interested in helping this year again, or for the first time, we are getting eggs on December 11th this year, or sorry, December 7th. We will be getting over 21,000 eyed rainbow trout eggs sent, which we then sort, package, and transport throughout the state with our awesome network of volunteers. I am going to, this video that I'm going to play here was done by an elementary student up in Bemidji about their trout arrival. Let's see if we can get that to work. Hold on, I have it muted. There we go.
Give another space for someone else. No, I didn't actually. Those are the pot.
All right. So in preparing for that arrival of those trout, and once they do arrive, this middle picture here, the students are doing something called tempering, and they are measuring the temperature of that water and gradually adding tank water to bring the temperature up, so it's not a shock for the eggs to be put into the tank depending on what temperature they're at. So immediately when they get the eggs, they are hands-on engaged in their face, looking at them and really being able to see those eggs up close. They also, as you can see in this picture on the left, they take the time to count. I had our longtime Stillwater teacher gave the idea of how he's had his students count in the past. And so now most of our teachers do this with their students in order to get that official starting number. I try to get them all 300 eggs, but sometimes maybe one might get 320 or 275, depending on how they're sorted. Okay. And shortly before they go to break, their holiday break, these eggs, before the students go to holiday break, these eggs will start hatching. And I'm gonna show you a video of what that looks like. I don't know if there's another ad here. There is not. Okay. So these are eggs. So how they hatch is they have a sharp little tail edge that slices through those sacs, and then they kind of wiggle their way out. Once they're out of their egg form and they're in this kind of interesting looking with this big yellow bubble on their belly, they're called sac fry or a leave-in. Okay. So what's really neat about this stage is, number one, it's my favorite. A lot of kids really like it too. But these trout do not require feeding yet. That yolk sac is providing them with all the nourishment they need while they grow large enough to be able to swim. So that is the reason that we time the eggs the way that we do in their arrival, is so that the kids get to see this stage, but then the fish do not have to be fed over the holiday break. Okay, teachers are still expected to go in and check on the tank, or have a custodian do it or something. The tank does need to be checked on. They don't need to worry about feeding, because once you start feeding, you start adding that waste to the tank, and that's when things can get crazy. Right. So that's in December, and then they go to break, and when they come back, most of the tanks have fish that are ready to be released into that tank. They go from the eyed eggs, and I don't think I mentioned this. I want to just go back really quick. if you look at this picture here, and some of you may already know this, but the stage that we get our eggs in is called eyed eggs. And it's called that because those little black dots in there are actually trout, they're little trout eyes. There's one stage before this one called, they're called green eggs. And we don't get them at that stage because they're really soft and gelatinous, kind of like frog or toad eggs at that stage. By this time, they've gotten a little bit of a hardened shell. So when the swim up fry are released in the tank, they are ready to begin feeding. And that's kind of when a lot of this work starts for the students in regards to, we call them trout technicians. Teachers keep them busy with testing water chemistry, cleaning, doing water changes, cleaning the tank, and maintaining and monitoring those tanks. And also just caring for the fish as they grow by feeding them, removing dead ones, that sort of thing. Monitoring for any sick fish. I'm going to just show one more video of what those fry look like, because then you'll see another picture at the end of what they look like when they are finally released. So when they're the swim up fry, they're still pretty little. This is my tank actually last year of just having dropped that basket to let those fish go up. Their first swim to the surface is for that first gulp of air to fill their swim bladder. Okay, so once they've absorbed most of that yolk sac, that's their next step. In the winter, we lead some activities with teachers, but there are also a whole bunch of teachers that are doing a variety of things without us leading them. One of the things we do with students is fly tying. We have ice fishing equipment for schools and students that are able to get off site in order to do an activity like that as well. Fly tying is a great one to be able to do in the classrooms. We have all the equipment for it. We have students tie a marabou bugger in a San Juan worm. And I know there are people on this call that helped quite a bit with fly tying this last winter and spring. A couple other pictures of things as they're going on. They're doing fish identification and adaptation activities. They are, in some cases, casting. This was a nice day, so instead of doing it in the gym, they went outside. And some teachers are doing trout dissections, and others are having their students learn about trout habitat restoration and design. Other things they do, depending on the area of the state, are hatchery visits. Starting in April, at least for our more central and southern schools, they start releasing their fish. Many teachers are anxious to get them out of their tanks and into the water, because by then they may have become a lot of work depending on how big they are. For the spring releases, we are limited. The DNR sets our release sites. Each fisheries area manager gets a spreadsheet of the schools and goes and looks at where will be the most appropriate place for students to release. And typically, well, not typically, all of them are bodies of water where trout are already, rainbow trout are already stocked. And it varies depending on where students are in the state, where they might release. And in some cases, students and teachers have to travel up to an hour to get to their release sites. Here in the Twin Cities, we release at the Vermilion River in Farmington, and then in Browns Creek and Stillwater. Those are the two release sites that we have for Twin Cities teachers. Up north, there's a couple with that release in rivers, mine pit lakes, and then other various creeks and streams throughout Minnesota. So the release itself, with all these cool pictures of students with cups in their hands full of trout, that part doesn't always take very long. So there's a lot of other activities we do with kids. We'll do another macroinvertebrate study because often it's on a different body of water than they did one in the fall. We will do games, a nature hike or scavenger hunt, some fly casting lessons, water quality testing with the Wise H2O app and stream keepers. So there's a lot of things going on in those spring releases. All right. So I met with Gary yesterday morning, and we have been talking about this for the last few months, but we were able to kind of solidify some ideas. This is developing, and like I said earlier, this is your attendance on this call is not committing you to this team officially. We will be sending out a follow-up email with this information we talked about, as well as a form for you to fill out that can give us an idea of what you might be looking for as a field support volunteer. The kind of idea we came up with was working with a volunteer would work with 1 to 5 schools in your community, depending on your availability. Maybe 1 is all you want to do. And that'll look different for everybody, depending on grade level preferences, where you live, the teacher's needs, and your availability in general. The goal would be to commit to 3 engagement with your school or schools throughout the school year, with a list of options to choose from. Instead of setting this up in a way that you are required to do egg delivery and, you know, the spring release and one other thing, we're trying to set this up so that it works for both you as the volunteer and the teacher. Okay, so we want to give options, and then only, you know, officially committing to 3 with the potential to do more if that works for you. Some of the options: assisting with tank setup and pre-cycling. Maybe this is something that teachers typically start in October. You do not have to be an expert on aquariums and all of those things. If this is something you are interested in, I have a guide I can share with you. I can also do some training with you as well. But next year, the goal would be, like I said, to have you join the teacher training where I'm going through a lot of that stuff. And you can learn with the teachers. Egg delivery, obviously in early December. We talked a little bit about that already. Assisting with a fall field day, your teacher's fall field day, whether that's something that's at or near their school or somewhere off site. A winter activity they may be doing, whether that's ice fishing or fly tying, or if you're up for it, a fish dissection. Spring releases, and then it's a little bit of a typo, but getting fish to the Minnesota DNR pathology lab in St. Paul for disease testing. This looks different for teachers depending on where they are in the state, but the idea is that the pathology lab needs their fish within 24 hours of collecting them. So outstate teachers have to overnight them, and then our Twin Cities teachers are either overnighting or trying to get them to the St. Paul lab. So that could be your role, is helping them get them to the lab or to the post office or wherever they need to get it to in order to overnight them to that lab. And then some other things, participating in other activities your schools may be doing in that are TIC related, such as the hatchery tours, fishing. We have a lot of equipment. If you are like, I want to take a group of kids from my school out fishing, you can just contact me and I could give you all the equipment you need to do that. If there's classroom experiments you want to help with or get involved in, a lot of these teachers are doing kind of aquaponics experiments. Kind of routine tank maintenance and fish care throughout the year. If you are close to the school, maybe you want to go in and help with some of their water changes or water chemistry testing, maybe troubleshooting some issues they're having. And then this is another typo there, I put fish care twice. And one other thing is school events. In this picture, this is our awesome stream keeper, Jim Sauter, helping with us release this spring on Browns Creek. And then this picture down here is we are helping at a Goodhue Public Schools Agriculture Day. We brought insects from Hay Creek and taught a little bit about macroinvertebrates to the groups coming through. So there's other school events that maybe they might request you a casting clinic or something like that for students and their families. So I mentioned a form. When Gary and I met yesterday, we had the epiphany that we should have been asking teachers what they need directly instead of assuming. I just kind of took that on myself as having, you know, supervised this program and kind of assumed that this list is what teachers need. I know some of it will be, but I'm not in the classrooms with them. So I'm going to be reaching out to teachers to get an idea of what sorts of things other than what I have here would be helpful for a field support volunteer to do for and with them. And then you will be receiving a form, like I said, just to kind of get some information about what this role might look like for you, and you know, how many schools you would be willing to take on and that sort of thing. And then Gary and I will meet and look at your responses and the teachers' responses, and we'll start kind of formulating matches and building this field support team from there. So this is kind of our pilot year, figuring things out. This would be the time for some questions, if you have any. I'm going to take this off of share. Stop share. There we go. Okay. Kind of threw a whole bunch of stuff at you there in 40 minutes. I'm hoping you have some questions for me. Okay, sounds good. And Gary made it. Hi, Gary.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm late. I just got home here in a rushing school.
No worries. It's being recorded, so you can take a look at what we've talked about. And all right, so I got a couple check things. So background checks, that's a great, you know, we've gone back and forth about background checks for volunteers and even for our own team and working with kids. And the reality is you are never going to be alone with a child in this role. And we decided that that is kind of the stipulation for whether or not somebody is going to need a background check or not. Because you would not be the one, you know, bringing an elementary student to the bathroom or anything like that. In any of the programming or work you'd be doing with those students in the school. But that's a great question.
So do you have enough volunteers signed up yet or not?
Well, we had 20 of you sign up for tonight. It looks like not everybody was able to make it. But I think that we have a pretty good, there has also been a few volunteers that have communicated with me, with Gary, with Carl Hensel, because this is something we're trying to grow throughout the state, of other people who are interested that weren't necessarily able to participate with this call. So, I mean, estimate about 20 to 30 interested people right now. So it's a great start. I hope this training didn't scare all of you away, or this meeting, not a training.
Hey, Amber, I'm wondering, you're going to send a follow-up questionnaire, it sounds like.
Yeah,
so I need a little bit of help, maybe like when you say 1 to 5 schools, what do you think, do you have an idea? I mean, probably pretty hard to say, but like the time commitment, like per school.
Yeah, I know. See, that's what's kind of hard because it would depend on what three commitments you're wanting to commit to. If you are doing a fall field day, that's 3 hours, because getting there to help set up, helping with the program, and then that half hour afterwards. Some are a little longer. If they're at the school, we might be there from, for doing 4 different classes over 4 hours. I mean, Gary, I don't know if you have an idea, but I would say anywhere from 15 to 20 hours throughout the entire year. That would be spread out the entire year, and that's why we want to be careful with making this kind of at least right now, while it's developing, a really strict list of the things that are required, because that's not how our world works. Everybody has a life, and some of you are retired, and some of you have kids and are still working full time, and it's but I would say about 15 to 20 hours, and that's spread throughout, you know, August through, if you attend the teacher training in August, and that's spread all the way out through May. Okay.
Just one more question. So is that per school?
Ooh, that's a great question. Gosh, I want to say yes, but you could, yeah, that would be a lot if it was all 5 for 5 schools, especially if they wanted you to participate with like everything. That could get to be a lot. Let me just kind of think on that a little bit. We came up with the 1 to 5 schools just with the idea that some people want to jump head first into doing a lot and might have a lot of schools around them. But the reality is most of you might want like 2. And that's great. I mean, any or 1, that's totally great. It's also going to kind of depend on your teacher. Maybe your teacher's doing really awesome things that you want to be a part of that's above and beyond what your official field support volunteer commitments are. Okay, and that might add to some of your time. But yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. It's just like,
Yeah,
but it's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
yeah.
And what I have found when I was working with the schools for the release is that some schools have a very extensive curriculum, and the teachers have really gone to the nth degree with the program, and others have done very, very little. And so it's going to really vary a lot from school to school.
And those variations come in oftentimes in our schools where it's not just one tank with one class all year. Okay, it's going to come into, maybe I have a tank in St. Michael Middle School, but only one teacher is really engaging his students with that tank, and the other teacher kind of talks about it, and their students know about it, but they're not really actively engaged in observing it. It also happens in some of our elementary schools. Some of our elementary schools have 4 to 5 4th grade classes. So that one tank, if they don't put it out in a community area, is in that one class. Those are the students that are really learning and engaging and observing and all of that kind of thing. Whereas the other teachers may not even really be interested, but we're just roped in because they're also a 4th grade teacher. And so it just it varies so much per school in their engagement and their engagement levels and what the teachers have been able to do with those students.
So Amber, this is Sally. How does the communications work between the teacher and the volunteer then?
Yeah, so the idea would be that it would be between the 2 of you, the volunteer and their teacher, with me in there kind of as needed. I don't like layers of people in communications. I like to keep that direct to that person as much as possible. I would facilitate potentially if it's a field day planning or spring release planning or something like that. I would certainly facilitate with that communication, but ultimately it would kind of be the volunteer communicating with that teacher to figure out how that relationship is going to work best for the 2 of you. If that helps.
Amber, did you have a chance to, I have a echo here. Did you have a chance to go over some of the things that, we're perceiving that the activities are?
Yeah, I added a slide to the PowerPoint, Gary, that I'll share. I'll send it to you, and I'll send it to everybody on this as well. But I did kind of parcel out that list we discussed a little bit more to be able to give all those options that are available.
From my observation, that list that looks like it's the essentials. Is that correct?
It kind of is, yeah.
So kind of to address Leland's point where 5 schools, if you've got somebody, I think if someone gets a hand dealt to them with 5 heavily engaged schools, it could be overwhelming.
It could be,
for
absolutely.
depending on the individual. And I'm wondering if there's any care taken as you guys go to connect with these schools to sort of vet out like who's at which end of the continuum. And then is there any way
the neediness factor?
well, no, the level of engagement, like who's going, you know, full on and is going to do every single activity and wants you there. And, you know, if there's a gauge of that, and then to sort of deal out,
sure.
You know, so everybody gets a level 5 school that's like clicking on all 8 cylinders and heavily engaged. And then maybe there's a you know, someone that is just kind of like, yeah, we're doing this. I'm the one teacher that's doing it sort of classroom.
Yeah.
Just in order to balance out that load, because I'm with Leland, I could be all in. I mean, I'm new enough to this retired gig and close enough to teaching that I'm all in, but not everyone's going to feel that way. So I just, that's my 2 cents.
No, that totally makes sense. And that is why, again, we realized yesterday, I should have asked teachers about this in September before this meeting to get their ideas and thoughts on it. But that is something I can parcel it out in some ways just based on what I know about these teachers. And the rest of that or more information can come from the forum that I will also share with them to, you know, with that list of things of what are the main things that are going with that list. And then are there additional things that could help you? How much do you anticipate wanting or needing this volunteer to participate with things? What I want you to remember too, is you are committing to 3 things and the teachers are going to know that too. Okay. I want that to be a very clear boundary. Both for you and and especially for that teacher to know that. I wouldn't want them to start contacting you for every activity they're doing, TIC related, to come help them. Unless that's something you communicate with them. Hey, let me know if something's happening. Maybe I can help if I'm available. But otherwise, the goal is not to have your 1 to 5, maybe 5 is a lot. We maybe should just drop that number to like 1 to 3 schools. They're going to know that you have limitations. And I will let them know that for sure.
Is there any chance, like, I was thinking about what you just said, you know, I know it's late and everything's probably better for next year, but like, I give them a question and say, hey, which one of these ones are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, it probably doesn't work for this year, but something like even.
Yeah. It's a good idea. I like it. Mike, you've been trying to say something.
Yeah, no, just not a big deal. So last year, I helped with the fly tying. So are you saying like we're replacing that lead person because I was just there to assist, or is there still another person in the room to help us do these activities?
You are not. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Nope. And then along with that, we also asked for other Twin City people. So there's like 3 or 4 of us helping like with fly tying. We're still going to be doing that. It isn't like we are the sole volunteer in the event, correct?
No. So say you were volunteering with an elementary school and they did fly tying. We would still put out the word to the whole TCTU membership of fly tying this program, come help as many hands as possible, it'll be great. That is not going to be just on the volunteer to assist. And then we're going to be like, oh no, the field support volunteer has it covered. We don't need additional people. The field support role in what we're trying to do is just have a team of people that's a little bit more of a consistent group that is knowledgeable, trained in, and wanting to engage with these schools in a more consistent manner than helping with one fly tying program or helping with just egg delivery and that's your thing. That is great. I love that volunteers are willing to do those one-off things, helping with programming, egg delivery, etc. But as the program grows, our team is not going to get any bigger. My role is even questionable moving forward after this year. We've been scrounging together these grants and funding to make this happen. And the more volunteers we can have to support these teachers is just going to help in the long run make this more sustainable for and not have it kind of collapse.
Okay, so we're more of a contact person for the teacher. So if the teacher has a question, they come to us versus going to Tom one time, Jerry the next time, and Sue the other time. Is that right?
You shouldn't be getting like general trout in the classroom questions necessarily from your teacher unless you wanted them to. If you wanted them to ask you questions about trout care and tank care, that can be a conversation you have with your teacher. But ultimately, that's your role is not to be their go-to for this program in that way. Your role is to assist. You asked about leading programs. I would never ask a volunteer to lead a program unless you're comfortable with it. We have a couple teachers on here that wouldn't, blink an eye. It wouldn't be a big deal to go into a classroom and lead an activity with some 5th graders. That's not a big deal. For other people, that's terrifying. And that's totally understandable. So it is all going to be at your comfort level. And, for fly tying, that would be something where you would be assisting. Okay.
Yeah, so then I would even question the 5 hours if there are other people, especially it would be dependent on per activity, because even for the fly tying, I think we were there maximum 3 hours. I don't even remember how long we were there. So.
Okay. So the 5 hours for what did I say about 5 hours?
I think you said there was up to 5 hours per activity. I guess that would have to be just the more the out.
Again, it just depends on the school. Some of these schools have 5 5th grade classrooms we need to do a fly tying program within a day versus, another one that might have 2.
Okay.
Yeah, it just kind of depends. So if we partnered you up with a school that had 5 classrooms in it, that's like 2 or 3 schools. You know what I mean? Like you'd have, that's also where the kind of Gary and I will look at, one classroom in one school versus 4 classrooms in another school is much different.
Yep.
Okay. In that load, it's all going to be just one lead teacher you're going to be communicating with. I am not going to have you communicate with all of those 4th grade teachers. I have one lead teacher at all these schools that I do all of my coordinating with, and that is who you would be connected with.
Okay.
Great questions, you guys. Gary and I will have a lot to talk about.
I think the thing is we're just starting this, and you probably went over this before, and not being, really sure how this is all going to work out. The big part of this is the survey with the teachers. What do they want as far as support? But I think that, what you're talking about, you can be as much involved in it with in-class, assistance with programs and that type of stuff, or as little, maybe going in and changing the water or helping the water tank exchange of the water.
Yeah.
So, as we walk through this, we don't want to just throw out this humongous program. We're all going to learn through this. And I think, after this first year, obviously we'll come back again and say what worked, what didn't. Some of you are all in, you're really going to jump into this. Others are going to be, limited as far as what they want to do. But I think the key points are that what Amber said, that, there will be a main contact. And this, I don't know what the exact title is, but it's like a field support person, I guess, is that, if I can explain it that way.
That's a field support volunteer. I think that it's a great word for it, because that's what it is. It's out in the field, supporting those teachers. So, yeah. All right. If there is anything else that comes up, I believe all of you have Gary's email, you have my email. I will send this recording, that PowerPoint, and a form later in the week. So you be watching for those. I really appreciate you taking an hour out of your evening to join tonight. It's exciting that we have this many people looking to support this awesome program. So,
Amber, did you discuss what the projection is that, the kickoff program like we talked about, that we need to get the survey back from the teachers, which will happen in October? And we were thinking of the egg delivery as the kickoff?
Yeah. So egg delivery for those volunteers that want that to be one of their commitments. That's kind of, if you are somebody that wants to do this and kind of try it out this year, that could be your first kind of official thing that you're committing to. But again, we know that some of you have full-time jobs and we're, and all of that stuff, and certainly don't expect you to take time away from those things to do that. So maybe egg delivery isn't one of your commitments. And maybe it would start with in January with going in and, helping with an activity or a fly time program.
If you could schedule egg delivery outside of the snowstorms, that'd be awesome.
Ugh, what a mess. Well, I'm getting eggs on a Wednesday this year. I usually get them on a Thursday. And then after last year and what happened, I'm getting them earlier in the week so that we have more time to make sure they all get out. It took 5 days to get eggs out to teachers this year. 5 days of eggs in my mother's fridge until I could get them out to teachers, because that's where we do the distribution, and more information on that to come for those that are interested. But we'll be doing that out of my mother's home in Burnsville again. She's got a nice huge garage, so it works well. All right. So feel free to email. My phone is on my signature on emails I send, my phone number, so you can call me as well. And I'm excited about this to develop it with all of you further as we move through the school year. So thanks again for being here and sharing your ideas and thoughts, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Amber.
Hey, Eva.
Sorry, I didn't want to, my story's kind of convoluted, so I didn't want to share it with everybody else.
Sure, I'm gonna stop the recording.